right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. And today on the show, we are talking about Blink Twice, the directorial debut of Zoe Kravitz. And joining me to talk about it, we've got filmmaker Camille Corbett, and we get into a lot of great stuff on this one. A very fun conversation about a wild movie. We're gonna get into a lot of stuff here, but that's coming up in a second. Before we get to it, I do want to remind you, as always, to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together, or wherever it is that you're listening right now. You could also drop us a little 5-star rating and review if you enjoy the show. Follow us on social media at PiecingPod. And also don't forget about our Facebook group, the Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces group, where we continue the conversation about all the movies we talk about here on the show. So with that said, let's get into this conversation about Blink Twice. All right, we're going to get into Blink Twice. And joining me today, we've got Camille Corbett. How's it going, Camille?
It's great. How are you?
I am doing great. I am excited to talk about this one. It should be a wild episode to get into. I feel like we'll get a lot of different directions to get into with this. But it is your first time on the podcast, so tell my listeners a little about you and what you do.
Okay, I'm a filmmaker and comedian based in LA. And yeah, I love writing funny things and scary things and being a part of like kooky productions that you wouldn't otherwise see.
Right on, right on. And I actually did. I watched your recent short, The Island, and I thought it was great. It was
Thank
really funny.
you. I
Yeah,
appreciate you checking it out. It's very much giving Black Lotus.
yeah. That's a great way to. That's a great way to describe it. I
I
love that.
honestly think my film is like a mix between White Lotus meets Blink Twice.
Absolutely. It's so funny you say that because while I was watching, I was like, God, we could seriously talk about this on this
Yeah.
episode as something to compare it to. So, yeah, I love that. And I will have a link in the show notes for anyone who has not gotten a chance to watch The Island, but definitely check that out. But, that being said, let's talk about Blink Twice. I mean, before we start getting into some influences, some puzzle pieces, was this one you were like super psyched about? Like, were you,
Yeah.
I mean, Zoe Kravitz as a director first time out, I mean, it seems like a pretty cool movie to get into.
Yeah, I'm a huge Zoe Kravitz fan. I still am sad that her Hulu series got canceled. I'm a
Hmm.
truther to that series. I'm like, bring it back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a huge fan of hers. And I think that everything she touches is gold. I think a big part of being a director is literally just having style. Like,
Mm.
I feel like you can look at some people and know that they'd be a good director just from the way that they dress. It doesn't even have to be over the top, but like when I think about like my favorite directors, they're all pretty much swagged out and have good sense of style within them.
Yeah.
And so because, Zoe Kravitz is probably like a style icon for every Black woman in the United States, at
Hmm.
this point, I was like, it's gonna eat, it's gonna be beautiful. Also, I'd heard great things about the script. I know it circled around town for a good 5 years before it got made. I think it was initially called Pussy Island.
It was. Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I was just like hyped that she wrote something so subversive that someone of her caliber had trouble making it. I was already in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that title would have been great. I mean, maybe it's a little bit of a spoiler, I guess, in a way of like
Yeah,
what to your,
definitely a spoiler, huge spoiler.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And of course, we will get into spoilers while we're talking about the movie. But for anybody who wouldn't have seen it and just saw that title, would be like, "Oh, I think I know what happens on that island." But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely, it's a great title. And yeah, I mean, this script had a lot of hype behind it before it actually got made. And like you said, I mean, she has a lot of style. This movie, for a first time director, it has so much confidence to it. And even if I'm a little mixed on it. Like I liked it overall quite a bit, and there's not much about it that I wasn't in on. But the
I
one
have
thing
one
that
hole.
you do, okay, well, I'm sure we'll end up getting into stuff
I have
like
a
that.
huge logic hole. In
Okay,
this
well,
movie.
those do
Very
happen,
cool.
but yeah, I mean, if nothing else, this movie is so confident and assured for a first-time director. It's kind of crazy, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, you could tell that, like, I don't know. She was like talking about how she always obsesses over film and just watches Criterion Collection at home all day.
Hmm.
And I was just like, you can tell she loves film. She loves coming to a scene in an unexpected way. She's incredible at shooting women. Like all the women
Mm,
look powerful and beautiful at the same time, even when they look frazzled. Like I was a
mm.
huge fan of like her depiction of women.
Right on,
And
right
of
on.
course,
Yeah, and I
Zoe
mean that.
Kravitz is not only beautiful in herself, but she can make other people look beautiful as well.
Sure, sure. And that's super important for this story, especially because
Yeah.
for the situation these women get themselves into, they need some strength. So but let's start getting into it. What do you have for your first puzzle piece? What did you think might have inspired Blink Twice?
Epstein Island, right?
Yeah.
Like
Let's
that's
just start with real
literally the
life.
vibes. I was
Yeah.
like, this is like cool Epstein Island. Like
Yeah.
Epstein Island meets Coachella. Like it was nice. I was just like, I wish Jeffrey Epstein was as hot as Channing Tatum. Then maybe it might have been worth it for his victims.
Oh man. Yeah. No, it's so funny that you're kicking it off with this because I was considering putting it on my list as well. I mean, it's obviously in the ether. It's something everybody's been talking about for years now, and especially over the last couple of years. And yeah, I mean, it's clearly a major influence on this. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to see other movies that kind of deal with situations like this coming in the next few years.
Well, what surprised me is that wasn't made like earlier. Like knowing the subject, knowing how hot it was when she first brought that script out. Like I
Hmm.
knew no script is perfect, whatever. She's initially an actress, but it's still crazy to me that like they didn't make it. They didn't see how hot it would be and initially just make it just because of the timeliness of it. Because I
Yeah.
haven't really seen scripts like that out, and it's so
Sure.
smart and it's so poignant. And like, if I had seen that during the Me Too movement, it would have rocked my world.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I'm going to go to another like a movie that is kind of one of these eat the rich movies that we've been getting a lot of recently, and I feel like the most obvious of the bunch would be The Menu from last year.
There's no way
Um,
that inspired her. I'm
you
sorry.
don't think so? Not one bit.
That
No.
one was so commercial and not well directed. So the script, impeccable, loved it. But
Hmm.
I feel like to inspire her, maybe I don't even think it inspired her topically because she'd written it so many years ahead of time. The
That is
direction
true.
was very like it was almost directed like a commercial. Like, did they get a commercial director? I don't know who directed that, but they're not someone I would look up to.
It's a very slick movie for
Yeah,
sure. Like
it
it's
looks like a
super super
cooking
slick.
commercial.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not giving like they watch a lot of films, The person
Yeah.
who directed The
I
Menu.
I hear that absolutely. I think at least these movies can be in the same conversation though, as far as like the moment right now and plus the setup. I mean, this ulterior horrific motive for bringing these people to this island where they can't escape, and it seems like a paradise. It seems perfect, but of course it's not. So
Yeah.
we at least have similar
They're
setups. We
cons,
have yeah,
but they're on
exactly.
different levels.
No, for sure.
Yeah, like The Menu is like very commercial. Like if it came out in theaters, I don't think it did. It came out on Hulu. I feel like it would have been like super commercial,
Mm,
like very, very, very mainstream. And Blink Twice was mainstream surprisingly, but I think it was just because of the budget they pushed it to be mainstream. I don't think necessarily it should be
yeah.
mainstream. It's sort of like Parasite, where like I love that film too, where it's also like Eat the Rich, where
Yeah.
it's like this film should not be pushed as hard as it is like commercially, but it is
Sure.
so good that you have to.
Yeah, exactly. You got to get it out there because I mean,
Yeah.
otherwise, as we know about a lot of these streaming movies, like they come out, people talk about them for like a week, and then they just kind of float into the ether and are never
Well, The
spoken
Menu
about
has sort
again.
of lasted in that respect because of the
That is
social
one that
commentary.
has.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
the casting was great on that. Like, I think that was the best part of the movie. I love Anna Taylor-Joy, and I love
Hmm.
Nicholas Hoult, like,
Yeah.
both incredible casting choices, and honestly, Nicholas Hoult would have been great in Blink Twice too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
He
would have
would have
loved to
been
see
really
him in
good.
that film. But the casting
Yeah.
in Blink Twice was amazing as well. Like, I was just, like, gagged.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, let's go to another piece. What do you got next?
Well, this isn't quite like a movie, it's more like a short, story, but I think, like, Most Dangerous Game, for
Sure.
sure. Like, I just kept thinking that the whole time, especially when they were dragging the women and stuff, I'm like, "They're literally
Hmm.
capturing them." Like,
Yeah.
this is crazy. Every night you have to capture them?
Yeah.
Seems excessive.
Yeah.
Like, crazy.
Yeah. Well, once you get to that level of insane, excess and, get anything you want at any time, it's like, what's next, I guess. And, but yeah, that story though, it comes back around every few years since, I mean, that's from what, the 30s or something.
Yeah.
And it comes every few years, there's something inspired by that. And I think Zoe Kravitz absolutely is 100% being inspired by The Most Dangerous Game here. And I think it's one of the clear ones to include on the list. Um, I'm going to go to 127 Hours, the Danny
Oh my
Boyle, James
God.
Franco movie. And my reason for this, and this one's kind of a little out of left field, I guess, but the reason is I feel like Zoe Kravitz does a great job here of, obviously these characters are under a bit of a drug and alcohol influenced, haze basically, even drugs that they don't know they're on because that's what's going on this island. But I think she does a great job of making it where you can't tell how much time has passed at any given moment. The characters can't tell, you can't tell, and it really just puts everything in a big fog. And I think that's something that Danny Boyle really did well in 127 Hours, where we see it in the title. This takes place over the course of 127 hours, but that character has no clue how much time has passed. We as an audience have no idea how much time has passed, and I think it's pulled off really well to make everything just super disorienting. And I think it's done really well here in Blink Twice as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely loved that movie when it came out, and I agree, like the perception of time is fucked.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Let's go to another piece. What do you got next?
Okay, so I love how it opened up with like how she was obsessed with him and stuff. It sort of
Hmm.
reminded me of like All About Eve,
Okay.
because it's like she ends up becoming him, in the end.
Sure. Yeah.
I love stuff like that. I love that. Like that was really cool, like calculated. Like I was really satisfied by that, to be honest, because I was like, where is this going when she like captures him? Like when she saves him from the fire, I'm just like, where is it going in this film? Like, why is she saving him? And then to see it's like, oh, he's now just a pawn. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that.
Exactly.
That was so good to me.
I think it's a great ending. I'm just going to jump right on top of your All About Eve, which is a great one to include here. I was thinking of the ending of Knives Out
Oh
actually
yeah, I
as
love
my
Knives Out.
version, of the same thing. And I mean, obviously, I think would Knives Out be a puzzle piece for your short film? Kind of,
Definitely. A
yeah,
visual one for sure in this, but like also a thematic one. But yeah,
yeah,
the
absolutely.
visuals are very strongly giving Knives Out.
Hey, there we go. I'm glad I brought it up then. But yeah, that ending. It's funny because at first I was thinking of Glass Onion, the Knives Out sequel,
Yeah,
because of tech billionaire islands, bringing everybody out, ulterior motives, the whole thing. But really, it's that ending though of the first Knives Out with Ana de Armas ending up getting the house in the end, and just that clever turnaround of the opening sequence. So yeah, a little of both, really.
yeah, so good.
Right on. Well, what do we got next? What do you want to bring up next?
Okay, so the consumption of like drugs and alcohol like really reminded me of Requiem for a Dream. Like it made
Mm,
me want to like drink all like every glass of champagne that was poured in that film. I was like, give me it. I'm ready. Like everything that was consumed, they were like able to like make really interesting and like really take time to show like how it's affecting their bodies, which I have only seen in Requiem for a Dream, to be honest.
yeah, it's a fantastic movie. I think it's funny that you're like, give me those drinks. Let's go. Let's
Yeah, like
let's
the
do that.
sizzle of the like champagne throughout the movie, like every time it hit, I was just like, "Oh my God, we're gonna get fucked up again in this movie." Like,
Yeah, they
is
make the partying look good.
it?
They make it look fun, at least the daytime scenes,
And I
let's
love
say.
when it turns into horror. Like it's like, "Oh my God, we have to smoke this joint." Like, what are we? We have to pass. We have to act like we're having a good time. Like that was crazy. That was so good.
That
I
was some
love
really
that.
great stuff. Absolutely, absolutely. I'm going to go with so I'm going to take it to 1975, Sallow or 120 Days of Sodom.
Oh, I have never seen that film. I
It's
gotta watch
wild.
now.
It's absolutely wild. It's obviously infamous, for being very difficult to watch, and it is very difficult to watch. It's about a bunch of fascists who have this little paradise for themselves where they basically get to rape and abuse children, and it's, it's horrific, obviously, but it's actually a really good movie, and worth watching if you can stomach it. And I think, you were saying at the very beginning about, Zoe Kravitz and her attention to detail with film, and watching all the Criterion films and stuff. Like, I think that that is probably a movie that was on her radar, and especially for the world that Slater King, the Channing Tatum character, has built for himself and all of his rich, entitled men in this movie. It's not that far off from, aside from the fact that they're not pedophiles, but
Yeah.
they're everything else in the
Close
book, though.
enough.
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, difficult movie, but I think worth watching.
Yeah, I need to check it out.
Well, what do you got next?
So I love a good revenge, story. Like that's like my bread and butter for sure. And
Mhm.
I love the character that was like the like fitness girl, like had won like a million versions of like Hot Girl Survivor, whatever the show was, like Hot
Oh, sure.
Babes, whatever it was called.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. I was like, I want to watch that show. And I just kept thinking like Kill Bill vibes. 'Cause, Kill
Okay.
Bill like starts with like, this dude that she's been intimate with and she like has this kid and then he like ends up like betraying her, and then she has to go for revenge and like being betrayed at that level, like having been intimate with someone is like unreal to me, like the concept of that. And so it was cool to like mix that like emotion with like the extreme action of the film. And I was like, this is giving Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 so crazy right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this movie, especially when the reveal comes that this has all happened before. This
Yeah,
isn't the first time. I mean, that at that point, it's just like, okay, this needs to be the ultimate revenge, or else it's just
yeah.
not good enough. You know what I mean? So, and that's something that I think Tarantino and that Uma Thurman character are, absolutely playing with there, as far as that just ultimate revenge. It has to be all or nothing.
What I
So,
also liked about it was that, like, there was, like, a Stockholm syndrome effect. Like,
mm,
all the trauma that he had caused, made her even closer to him and hold him tighter, like, knowing that that trauma, like, extended back another summer, you know?
yeah,
So that was insane to me. And it also was, like, I think, like, a good allegory for, like, how a lot of women, they just, like, will, you know be a plaything to powerful men, whatever, and somehow survive and end up the wife, and have this power and be like so like almost like another sort of person. They can't even see themselves in the reflection. Like I think the end version of her is sort of like the woman that was his assistant too, like they're like similar in the
yeah.
fact like she turned into that woman because it's like now if he does something like that she will know that beast and be unafraid of it and just think boys will be boys. I have power now. I am excluded from this. And I love that sort of commentary on things where it's like, yes, a lot of women, they become victims of this system, but some prevail and then they end up like being agents of it as well.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. I think like one of my main nitpicks with the movie is the ending, the fact that it just wraps up so quickly. Like, when did she
Yeah.
come up with that plan? Because it seems like it would take a little work. You know what I mean? And so I do think that that kind of with a a little bow on top.
I have an issue with the ending. There's like
Hmm.
a big gaping hole. Okay. So she supposedly like makes him forget everything by putting it into his vape. How do
Sure.
you put perfume into a vape? I I was just like, how? Like as someone who wears a lot of perfume and who vapes, how do you put perfume into a vape? Please tell me. Like
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they're hoping we either are unaware of how vapes work or don't know how to pour
no, I was
perfume into
like,
things.
wait
Like,
a minute, you're trying to convince me that's gonna work that he's now consumed it like
yeah, maybe we got a touch of sci-fi here in this movie as
yeah
well.
like I was
So
like you could have
yeah,
at least shown me like some secret compartment the vape had where you can unscrew it or something. No, I was supposed to believe some perfume went into a vape, okay, and both are sealed. Crazy.
well, Well, I feel like we kind of have to bring up "Don't Worry, Darling" on this
Oh yeah,
episode,
I
even though it's so
love that
recent.
film.
That
People need to
movie.
respect that film. People didn't respect it because they heard Harry Styles' accent, which once you
Hmm.
watch the film makes sense. It was good. Like
All
people
right.
need to give it the respect it deserves. It's like crazy how people are selective between the female directors they respect. Like
Mm.
I'm just like, what makes Olivia Wilde not someone you should respect as a director?
Yeah, and that kind of came out of nowhere, honestly. Like I'm very mixed on that movie, but I
I
will say
love
though, as far as Olivia Wilde though, like she did not earn any of the hate that she got
It's because she
whatsoever.
dated a pop star. Have you seen the movie
Yeah,
The Idea of You?
yeah, yeah.
It's basically based off of her life. It's
Right,
like
right.
Wattpad fiction that they made, like based off of her life. That's
Mm-hmm. Yep.
crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that that movie, even though it's, like The Menu, it's too new really because she's had the script in development for a while. But still, I mean, it's in the ether in the exact kind of conversations that this movie is meant to stir up, as the kind of things that happen with the big reveal and Don't Worry, Darling. And I think this movie is a lot more successful in what it's trying to say about those
Yeah.
kinds of guys
I
than Don't
think
Worry, Darling
the
is.
problem with Don't Worry, Darling is you can tell the director directed a bunch of shit you can't watch.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah.
already heard about it, but then to see it, you're just like, this storyline is weak. Like there
Hmm.
had to have been more there, and there was, but like I guess they couldn't make it a 3.5 hour film.
Yeah.
Uh,
When that movie gets camp, it like that's when it's fun, and I had
yeah,
fun with those parts of it. But yeah, it's a bit of a mess. But yeah.
yeah, I like that film, but
Hmm.
just because I love like how it was directed, I should say. Like I
Sure.
won't say that the plot made the most sense,
Mm.
but I love the way everything looked.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Do you have any other puzzle pieces?
No.
Well, I got one last one to bring up then. I wanted to bring up Zack Snyder's Sucker Punch, which
Oh,
it's a very love it or hate it movie, but it is a fantasy adventure about a bunch of women in a mental institution who are being drugged and things are happening to them, and they're imagining these fantasy adventure sequences of what they would do to their abusers, and then they do those things afterwards. And so I think that it definitely is part of the way that a movie like this comes to be, something that is about a very heavy subject and then takes a very kind of fun genre and takes that serious subject and kind of meshes them together into a very interesting and unique kind of way. Again, like with Don't Worry, Darling, I feel like this movie is much better than Sucker Punch. But I think both of those movies kind of together deal with this, horrible
it
shit.
kind of reminds me of Cloud Atlas too, because that happened in
Yeah.
Cloud Atlas with the robots. There's like a million storylines in Cloud Atlas, but
Yeah.
that was one of them. It's very similar,
Absolutely.
where they suddenly become sentient. Like that's what it was almost like they were living like on autopilot, and then all of a sudden they were like, "Oh shit,
Mm.
reality's peeping in."
Yeah.
Because of the
Absolutely.
snake venom.
God, there is a lot of shit happening in Cloud Atlas, isn't there?
Yeah, too much.
A lot of
Yeah.
stuff, but yeah,
Yeah, I read the
I've never
book.
read it. I've never read it, but
No, the Tom Hanks storyline is the worst storyline in the book because it's
oh.
like he's still speaking like that. Like the weird speak. I'm like, what? Can I just
Oh
read
boy.
something normal?
Yeah, seriously. Well, I'm going to read down the list of all the pieces we just talked about for Blink Twice, and then we'll get into some closing thoughts. But we started it off talking about Epstein Island. How could we not? Then moved on to The Menu, The Most Dangerous Game, 127 Hours, All About Eve, Knives Out, and Glass Onion, Requiem for a Dream, Sallow or 120 Days of Sodom, Kill Bill, Don't Worry, Darling, Sucker Punch, and we threw Cloud Atlas in there as well. I think we got into a lot of good stuff here. Is there any closing thoughts you have for Blink Twice? Anything we didn't quite get to that you wanted to mention?
I just love the entire cast. Like the casting on this was like the best part because there were a lot of
Hmm.
actors I wasn't familiar with. Like the lead, I was like, "Who the fuck is this?"
Yeah,
And she was amazing. She
yeah.
was amazing. Like the two main women in that movie. I forgot I know Naomi Ackie is the lead, but the girl that plays like the survivor girl, like, oh my God, like I want to see
Yeah,
them both in way more things now.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, they were both great. Alia Shawkat was Jess. She
Yeah,
was
she was
great.
amazing. Yeah, I
Seeing
love
Geena
her
Davis pop
character.
up, she hasn't been in a lot
Yeah, Geena
lately.
Davis was amazing. I loved
Yeah,
her character because she was just such a great foil to the girls, saying like, "Oh yeah, I used to be like you, but like now she's like of this higher
yeah,
status that's beyond like the male's touch, and you just have to be like an agent to like the patriarchy now." But yeah,
yeah.
it was really good. I something I wish I understood the symbolism for the chair that he kept moving. I was just like, what does that mean? I feel stupid.
I don't see it, and that's the thing. I don't think that there's an answer for that. Like that's what I think she's doing with that particular bit of the story. I think it's just a character who doesn't really know what he's doing. You know what I mean? And like it's just he's a fucking mess. This guy, you know what I mean? He's terrible, and he's a real piece of shit, and he doesn't know what he's doing. He's completely lost, and I think that that's
Needs
that's just kind of
direction.
a more subtle version of that he just doesn't know what to do with the chair. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's
I
like
could be
this is
wrong, but that's my read on the situation.
yeah, I
But
was like,
yeah.
I've been like thinking about it. I'm like, is it because he didn't know where to place the blame?
No, there you go.
I
There you go.
guess I don't
Metaphors.
know. I don't know.
Absolutely.
I'm
I like
trying.
that. That's good. That's good.
It's crazy he had a giant dick on his desk too, like a dick statue. Like
Yeah,
I,
I thought that might come up more, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here. There's
okay.
also the dick drawn on Haley Joel Osment, poor
Oh
Haley Joel Osment. But
yeah.
yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap. We wrapped up on the dick drawn on Haley Joel Osment's forehead, poor Haley Joel Osment. But I think it's a good place to wrap up. Blink twice. Is there another movie you watched recently you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
Oh my God. Okay, I watched Blow Up,
Right
which
on.
is based off of a short story by Julio Cortázar. And I
Mm-hmm.
read the short story first. The short story is like very disorienting, and I feel like like it's good to read that and then watch the film because you'll understand what actually went down in the short film.
Maybe because yeah, that was a difficult watch for me when I watched Blow Up. I have
It's
another
so
podcast, Awesome
slow.
Movie here, and yeah, it's very slow, and I was very confused. Maybe I need to read
If you
that.
know what's gonna happen, it makes it less slow. Cause then it made me like just wait for moments, basically. I'm like, okay, this
Interesting.
is what's gonna happen. So I could sit in the silence better. I thought that like while watching it, I'm like, this must be boring as fuck if you've never like read the short story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I got to read the story and then go watch that again.
Yeah.
That's a
It's
good
short. It's
recommendation.
like 15 pages.
Nice. Right on. Right. That's short enough for me even.
Mhm.
Right on. Well, Camille, tell people where they can find you and your short and everything else you're up to.
Okay, you can find me on social media at the Witty Girl on all platforms, but at the Witty Girl TV on TikTok. And you can check out my film The Island on my YouTube channel, and it's just at the Witty Girl again. I'd love it if you checked it out. It's very much giving Black Lotus meets Blink Twice. So if you like this film, you will definitely like my film. There's less rape. Oh, I don't know if I should
Ye-
say that word.
Well, we knew that word would probably come up at some point in this
Yeah.
conversation, but yeah. Well, right on. Hey, thank you so much for doing the show, Camille. Hopefully, we'll get you back again sometime.
Yay. Thank you for having me.
On March 27th, 2024, Elon Musk was deposed in a libel lawsuit filed by Ben Brody. The deposition is a new Hug House podcast reenactment of the entire deposition, word by word, in full, taken very seriously.
May I finish?
Sure,
Do you feel you need to yell again?
I might.
The deposition drops on the 4th of July, 2024, with 4 weekly episodes. Subscribe on your podcatcher of choice or find us at hughouse.productions today.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that conversation about Blink Twice. Thanks so much to Camille Corbett for joining me on that one, and thank you to all of you for listening. If you're enjoying piecing it together, make sure you are subscribed. We've got a lot of episodes on the way. This one, you might have heard a while back. It's going up on the Patreon in advance. So you could also subscribe to the Patreon where I post bonus and advanced content from Piecing It Together, Awesome Movie Year, and my music career. It's patreon.com/bydavidrosen. You could get access to all the bonus stuff starting at $3 a month. And I really appreciate you all being out there just listening. But if you want to support the show, you could do it over there and get access to all that cool stuff. Video versions of some episodes, early access to episodes, a bunch of music stuff, bonus episodes of Awesome Movie Year, lots of cool stuff over there on the Produced by David Rosen Patreon. You can follow me on social media at Piecing Pod. Join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces. Also, get in touch if you think of puzzle pieces for any of the movies we talk about on any of these episodes. Send them in. I'd love to hear them. I will read them on the next trailers episode, and I just love hearing from the listeners. So get in touch with me. You can do that on all the socials. There's also a contact form on our website, piecingpod.com. So that does it for today's episode. I'm going to close this out with a piece of music like I always do. And I don't think I've played this before. I scored a film last year called Inexistent, and one of these days I'm going to post the soundtrack album up on the Patreon. I just haven't gotten a chance to do it yet, the full score from the film Inexistent. But what I'm going to play for you is actually a bonus track that I added on as just like an extra that kind of kept the same vibe as a lot of the rest of the score, but I just made like one new extra piece. And so that is what this is. It's a track called In Your Head. It's the bonus track from the score album for Inexistent. Hope you enjoy it. We'll be back with more Piecing It Together real soon.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.